everyone. My name is Cedeno, and I am the founder of Women Offshore. And this is our second online webinar, and we're really excited.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Jace Curry. I am the Director of Community Outreach at Women Offshore. I'm so glad that you're here joining us today.
Yeah, today's going to be a lot of fun. It was important to us to have a webinar about mentoring. And if you're coming in now, please put in the comments who you are, where you're from, say hi, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the feed. I know that a lot of people are curious about what it takes to have a mentoring relationship and get the most out of it.
Absolutely. So we'll have time for Q&A later today. You can drop questions in the feed now or when we move to Q&A at that point. Also, make sure you share this webinar. The hashtag is Women Offshore, so use that while you share. And like I said, we're so excited for you to join us. Hopefully you get a lot out of this.
Yes, we hope you get a ton out of this. This is for you. We make it live and available to everyone. That's part of what Women Offshore does. We want to make sure that our content is very accessible. So today on this webinar, you're going to hear from Tara, who I've been working with for the last year on our mentoring program. You're also going to hear from a panel of female seafarers who are going to share their experiences around mentoring. So Jace, I'm going to push you to the backstage and bring on Tara. So we will see you in a few minutes. When I guess Tara is finished, you'll be back to lead that panel.
Sounds great. Talk to you guys then.
So welcome, Tara, all the way from Australia. It's really good to have you on the show here. And I'm really excited for you to share some of what you've learned around mentoring, give some ins and outs of the mentoring program. And again, you and I have worked so hard on this mentoring program, meeting almost weekly. It's such a pleasure to work with you all the time. And I've learned a lot from you on what it takes to be an admin behind the program, because we have a lot of people in our program over the last couple of years. If those of you watching don't already know, we've had about 150 women consistently in the program, and now we have 500 spots. So it's been good filling those and learning along with you. And I'll leave you to present. Tara, are you able to share your screen?
Yes, I am. I'll just quickly do that now. Perfect. Are you able to see that?
Yes, and I will remove myself so you can take it away.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Ellie. And yeah, welcome everyone. So I'm dialing in all the way from Melbourne, Australia. And as Ellie said, I've been working with the Women Offshore program for a year now, but Ellie has been with us for 2 years even. So it's super exciting to be here. And today I'm here to discuss mentoring best practice, as well as some tips and tricks to get the most out of your mentoring relationship, especially utilizing the platform as well. Okay, I'm just going to change the slides. Hopefully you can see that. So a little bit about the why for mentoring, and obviously Mentorloop as well. So Mentorloop was co-founded by 2 women here in Australia, and we're headquartered here in Melbourne, Australia. And mentoring, I guess there's a popular and traditional idea out there that mentoring revolves around the chosen one. That mentoring has taken place behind closed doors, where organizations create special programs and select high performers, if you will. And while there's nothing wrong with being mentored or mentoring with someone who's on a similar journey, there can be some real value in that non-obvious connection. So the right connection can change your life. And right now we know that 75% of execs owe their success and their career to having great mentors throughout their career. And even better, as I said before, there's more than one type of mentor, or there's no one perfect match. So rather we build a personal advisory board of relevant connections throughout our career. So Mentorloop is here to help support and facilitate mentoring within Women Offshore. And, today I'll talk quickly just right now about the platform itself and what you can expect when you do sign up. So the people that have signed up already, you would have already gone through this process, but this is how you register your interest and recruit for us. And here we'll ask questions about you, your career, and more importantly, what you want to get out of mentoring and what you want to bring to being a mentor as well. We recommend keeping your profile up to date so that we can match you accordingly. We have an algorithm that runs in the background, which I'll talk to a little bit later. But this is how we, get as much information about you as possible. This is your mentoring home or your Mentorloop dashboard. So here you'll be able to have access to your one-on-one loop with who we match you with, as well as your program coordinator, which at the moment is Ali. You'll also have access to some recommended reading and the resource hub as well on the left-hand side. Now, if you want to always navigate back to your dashboard, you just click the little Mentorloop logo on the top left-hand side, and then you'll always be brought back here. So matching. So Mentorloop and Women Offshore will work together to match everyone within the program. Now, I mentioned before we have an algorithm that runs in the background, and basically we will match you on goals and skills and a little bit of industry experience as well. We're going to aim to match people every 6 months so that we can boost that connection within the Women Offshore community. And I guess a top tip from me is, go into it with an open mind and don't have any assumptions. So sometimes we come in it and we say, okay, I want a mentor that has had 20 years of experience so that I can learn this, this, and this. But we know that there are so many different types of mentoring connections out there. We've got your peer-to-peer, which is someone that is just a little bit older than you or a little bit ahead in their career. So on a similar path, essentially. We have reciprocal, so it's a two-way street. And then we also have reverse mentoring, so learning from different types of perspectives. So kicking off the relationship. So in the Mentorloop app, you'll have a one-on-one loop with who you've been matched with. And here you can share files, events, you can create tasks. Mentees can set goals as well. And we use this one-on-one loop as a bit of an online journal. So you'll definitely connect outside of the app, whether it's LinkedIn or WhatsApp, for example. But we like to always bring it back to this one-on-one loop to track progress over time. So setting yourself up for mentoring success. So we've just released a new feature which we call mentoring milestones. And essentially these are recommended tasks and actions within the app just to guide you along your mentoring journey. So what is the next step? So if you have been matched, the next natural step is to reach out and introduce yourself to your mentor or mentee. So these milestones will help you guide you along your mentoring journey. And you get some really cool confetti when you mark a task off as well. Goals. So goals can be pretty hard to create. I find them a little bit difficult sometimes, but mentees can set goals within their one-on-one loop with their mentor. And then mentors are able to review and edit and make notes on this goal as well. You can set a time frame. So that helps me when I set goals is to, I make sure that it's 3 months or 12 months even, and then what the milestones look like as well. So I actually, put small goals in there because it feels good to be able to tick them off. So maybe you've met with your mentor or mentee and you've agreed on researching on a particular topic or looking up a particular resource. So you'll be able to mark that off once that's complete. Nudges. So Mentorloop will share communications in the background again, it's resources to help you along your mentoring journey. And also you'll receive communications from Ali and your mentor or mentee. So if you're logged into the app, you'll get a notification, but if you're not logged in, it'll come through via email. So if you haven't heard from your mentor or mentee in a while, or even Mentorloop, maybe check your junk or spam just in case, because these will be coming through for the first 6 months once you've signed up. And the resource hub. So on the left-hand side, which I showed you before on your dashboard, we have a resource hub, which is literally content written by our team. So you've got your mentoring experts, your co-founders, and obviously marketing. Now, this is not just tips on how to use the platform, but also mentoring resources as well. So, for example, 25 questions to ask your mentor or mentee on your first meeting. So we're here to, obviously provide as much information as possible. And in saying that, we're here from a support perspective as well. So there's a little pink box on the right-hand side when you log in. It's actually our Mentorloop support. So if there's any technical questions, please feel free to reach out. But also, if you have any questions around mentoring too, and you want a particular resource or particular help, we're here to help. We don't outsource our support, so it all comes to Melbourne, Australia. And yeah, we're here along your mentoring journey. Now, mentoring tips and tricks. So we obviously have a lot of resources out there, a lot of advice for mentors and advice for mentees. So I've tried to, bring it all into 3 key points, which is purpose, expectations, and being proactive. So being with purpose, it's good to have a clear understanding of why you're here, especially from a mentee perspective. What do you want to achieve, and more importantly, when? This just adds a little bit of structure to the mentoring, journey or relationship, and really helps you on a clear path. Expectations as well. So setting those expectations early around how are you going to meet? Is it going to be face-to-face? I know we can't really do that right now. I'm not sure about how the situation is in the US or wherever you are, but here in Melbourne, we're in lockdown. So we'll have to meet via Zoom or we'll have to meet via email. Also, how often are you going to meet? Is it going to be a monthly cadence or is it a quarterly? But setting those expectations early really, really sets a ground for how you're going to, navigate this mentoring relationship. And then being proactive. So if you haven't heard from your mentor or mentee for a little while, that's okay. Just reach out, just say hi, because they're probably really busy. Sometimes it does take a few weeks to kind of get back on our feet. But if there's a lull in the connection, it can be quite hard to pick it back up again. So we do recommend just reach out if you haven't heard from them in quite a while. Now, I've quickly put in just some quick tips and tricks around remote mentoring. I know a lot of you will probably be, have engaged in remote mentoring already just because of your industry, but we see a lot of organizations now due to COVID who have actually moved to that remote mentoring piece. So for example, even my mentor lives in Sydney, Australia, which is, a plane ride away. So we've always engaged in remote mentoring. But I've pulled it into communication, encourage reflection, and focus on hard work. So communication is key. Utilize that one-on-one loop. Make sure that you're over-communicating almost. And then also pick how are you going to communicate. Is it going to be on Zoom? Is it going to be on Skype for Business? And then even a little tip is to put your video on so at least you can have that face-to-face engagement as much as possible. Encourage reflection. So mentoring remotely is hard. It can be really difficult, especially if you are a face-to-face person. Recognize that it is tough times as well. And focus on hard work. So, really trying to stick to your goals, keep track of your goals. Mentors checking in as much as possible with their mentees just to see how they're going. And I put in a really cool testimonial, which you can read on our Mentorloop blog. But basically, this is a mentoring journey between 2 people. I think one person is in the US and the other person is in Sweden. And they've always engaged in remote mentoring because they live in different locations. And they found remote mentoring quite a skill to do. It was a skill that they developed and learned throughout their mentoring journey. But a quick quote from them, don't be afraid to be part of the process. So participate with an open mind and be willing to learn from others to set yourself up for success. You can read that on the blog.
Tara, thank you so much for that. If anybody has any questions for Tara, she will be back on for Q&A, so you guys can drop those in the comments. And I think we're going to bring on our panel now. Hey, ladies. So to start off, please introduce yourselves and speak a little bit about what mentoring means to you. I'm going to let you all do your own intros because you'll do a much better job with it than I will. But Serena, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Serena Webber-Bey. I'm a chief engineer still with the Marine Engineers Beneficial Association. I graduated from SUNY Maritime in 2004, and I've been at sea ever since then. Last year, I started a position as a temporary port engineer with a shipping company in Long Beach, California. So I've been doing that job, and hopefully when that's over and they don't need the extra personnel, I can get back out to sea as either a first or a chief. Originally, I'm from New York City, and I now live on the West Coast. And mentoring is actually, at first I wasn't very prepared to do it. I thought I needed a mentor and they couldn't find me one. So I ended up having a few mentees, and then somewhere down the line, I found someone and I dragged them in. So it's just showing me that there are things that I'm capable of that I didn't think that I was going to be useful for.
Excellent. That's amazing. Maria, could you introduce yourself and tell us what mentoring means to you?
Yes, ahoy, I am Maria. I'm a woman offshore. I am a mentee at Women Offshore Mentoring Program. I'm currently working as a radio operator, and I'm from Brazil. Well, mentoring is really important for me. Maybe if I hadn't sought for mentoring, I wouldn't be here today and I wouldn't be still working in the industry. Mentoring has driven me for the past 8 years of my life, as an offshore woman. I was just listening to the podcast about the mentoring program, and one of the founders, she said, we are all looking for a better version of ourselves, and I agree with her. We all picture this better version of ourselves, and we want to meet this person. So that's why it's so important for us to keep evolving and finding a way of achieving it. Mentoring means for me that even on my hardest days, there is still someone out there who believes in me and is supporting me all along the way.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's definitely, this industry can be very challenging being a woman in the industry, and having that support from someone who's been there and understands everything that you're going through is huge. So that's an important point for sure. Cassie, could you introduce yourself as well?
Hi, I'm Cassandra Mauer. My maiden name is Pedersen. I went to Merchant Marine Academy and graduated in 2018. Originally from Minnesota, but I live in Charleston, South Carolina. Most recently, I work for Transocean, and I was recently on the Deepwater Proteus, starting a new adventure in life. I'm expecting and I'm due in January, so I'm actually on leave right now. So that's about it with my life right now. Mentorship for me is progress. Your mentee, which mine is Serena, she has valuable insight and experiences that can obviously help me, and progress for me or her is progress for the industry. So yeah, it's been pretty good. At first, I think I was a little intimidated. I always thought, maybe I was taking things personal, or that my problems were so small, and it turns out, these are actual issues that we were having. And yeah, so mentorship and Mentorloop has been great for me.
Amazing. Yeah, congratulations on the new addition. And also, that's also an important point. Just having somebody to bounce things off of is so important, to say, figure out how you feel about something, right? And talk through it with somebody who may have been in that situation, may have seen a similar situation, whatever that looks like, and having that support within the community is huge. So our next kind of point is, please share a story about how mentoring has impacted your career. And Maria, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, mentoring was definitely a game changer in my life. Well, not sure if you all know, but being part of this 2% of women in the offshore industry is hard. But when you decide to join the industry at the age of 30, it's just a bit more difficult. So after my first year working offshore, I decided that I want to stay in the industry and build a career. That's when I searched for my first mentoring. I didn't even use this word back then, but I knew that I needed a professional opinion about me, about my skills, capacity, about the job that I was already delivering on board. So that's when I got it. After 3 months, I was prepared for my next role. I got some extra training on board. I had taken all the courses that I was supposed to. I had all the mandatory certification in hands. And after 5 months, I was hired for this next role.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's a quick advancement in the industry for sure. Cassie, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, so mine's really a two-part story, I guess. So straight out of graduation, I started sailing on the Great Lakes, which I grew up there, so it was a dream job. I did an entire season, so when I laid up my boat in the winter, kind of had this reflection that if I didn't leave now, I wasn't going to progress towards my seconds, and ultimately I wasn't very happy. So I reached out to Serena and told her, I'm looking elsewhere. Here's what I want to do. I'm not a union member. Well, at least at the time I was an MMP engineer, which ultimately wasn't going to really help me if I wanted to go MEBA. She put me in connection for Transocean and a few other things, and ultimately it worked out, and I ended up getting hired with Transocean like a month later. And then a few months later, starting a new job, I think I was very intimidated and pretty quiet. I didn't advocate for myself on, what I wanted to do and learn. And Serena and I had a heart-to-heart about it. And, she said, there's not much you can do in that, show your strengths. If that's organization and doing small things, they're still going to get noticed. And ultimately, did receive recognition on that, and progress forward, and I started to be able to do a lot more. So, that was good for me. And, Serena's always ultimately, at first we weren't very good at using Mentorloop, and, we'd find other ways to connect and talk. So she was really good about setting goals, even if it was outside on a different platform. So that's been my experience.
Amazing. Serena, do you want to tell us what you have learned as a mentee?
So I learned to take myself seriously. I would say, I've been sailing for a long time. And when I took over the Women Offshore platform, I talked about how, I like to party and hang out. And I was using this job before I got my first engineer's license, basically as a way to pay for my lifestyle. I was like, okay, we just got off of work. I'm going to go, on vacation. I was more concerned with just, that. And when I graduated from school, my two best friends from SUNY also joined the MEBA. And so I always had this little trio of people to bounce things off of. I'd call up my friend Christine or my friend Adrian when I was having a problem, and we would always email each other and stay in communication on board the ship. We were kind of our own little inclusive, kind of mentorship amongst each other. But they both left the industry. And so I started to look around, and there wasn't a lot of people that were, above me in my position. And there weren't even many women at my level. So I didn't have a lot of people to discuss my, my wants and my needs and my problems. And so I did start to look for mentors or the people that could help me. And, it was very difficult to come across that. And so when I saw that Allie was starting Women Offshore and the mentorship, I was like, oh, maybe I can find a mentor there. And then I joined, and she was like, well, I can't really find anyone for you, but maybe you could help mentor some of the other women. And I was like, I guess I don't really know what I have to offer, and with Cassandra's problems, we don't necessarily, we don't have the same background or even the same attitude or the way that I see things. But I would think about how maybe my friends that, our little trio would approach the problems. We all did things differently. And so I would try to say, okay, well, maybe Adrian or maybe Christine would offer this advice. And we tried to, work on many different ways of, to attack an issue that she was having at work. So for me, it's definitely made myself, take take myself seriously as, you know, someone that apparently, you know, I'm supposed to be looked up to, and just take my job more seriously, and the fact that, you know, I can move, you know, forward in this industry like more than I thought, you know.
Yeah, Serena, you have had a truly impressive career. So I personally am psyched to have you in the mentoring program. As you know, kind of a last discussion point, what last advice do you have for someone who is looking to make the most out of mentoring? Maria, we'll start with you for this one as well.
Okay. So guys, if you're seeking for a mentoring program, I think my first piece of advice would be you have to have clear defined objectives, but sometimes we're lost. But I mean, there's always a purpose. You have to be committed to yourself and find a clue of what or where you want to be. I mean, you want to make more money, you want to a transition from an offshore to an onshore position, you want to change your profession, you want to learn a new skill. So you have to have a clue there. If you have these, it's going to be much easier when you enter to a mentoring program. My second piece of advice would be set up your goals and be real about the deadlines. I mean, we all have a very crazy life at work and at home, and we're going to do some extra work, you know, being in the mentoring program. So you don't want to let yourself down, but also you don't want to take ages to reach your goal. So be real about that, okay? My third piece of advice, it's a very important one. You must feel that you have a very good relationship with your mentor, because there has to be a friendship along the way, you know. This bond of trust makes all the difference. So you have to be friends with your mentor. And my last piece of advice, last but not the least, please keep yourself motivated. I know that sometimes we want to cut out sugar and carbs from our lives, but please also cut out negative and toxic people. You should know everyone that you share your dreams with, okay? So keep yourself motivated.
Amazing. Thank you, Maria. Cassie, do you want to drop some advice here as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess be available, be honest. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. I think it's easy to get caught up in your life, and sometimes when I'm like a little bit stressed or I have a lot going on, it's easier for me to like not talk to anyone or socialize. But yeah, keep in contact. Don't ever feel like your problems are so small or silly. I'm sure your mentor like at least has some kind of advice or remedy to it. So, yeah.
Amazing. And Serena, how about you?
To get the most out of it, I agree with what Maria was saying about setting your goals and getting to know, you know, your mentor, your mentee. So right now I've just gotten some new mentees, and Cassandra's moved on. I feel like she's actually done so well. She met a lot of the goals we set. Congratulations on your pregnancy. That's great. And like right now, so I'm getting to know my new mentees before I start, you know, bombarding them and asking them what their goals are. You know, I want to find out what types of, you know, engineers are. I think they're both engineers. I guess they are. I want to find out who they are before I start asking like what their goals are. And then, you know, in terms of like right now, I'm taking a little bit of time getting back to them. If you can't tell, I'm in a car. I'm on a vacation for the first time in like a year, and where I'm staying has more bears than Wi-Fi, so I had to travel out to come get that service. And so, I mean, I always like to read what they've sent me, and then take a little bit of time to like consider. You know, sometimes I do research. Like one of my mentees and one I had previously are Canadian engineers, so I don't know much about the Canadian merchant marine, but I have some contacts in the industry and I have some friends. So, you know, I do a little bit of homework before I respond to them, and I try not to just, you know, gun deck it.
Yeah, that's an important point too, what you said earlier about, you know, kind of taking things big picture, not just getting to know them and what kind of engineer they are, but like who they are as a person too. It's something that we see a lot of professional development in this industry. We don't always see a lot of personal development. So that's something that is so important, and I'm glad that you're able to help fill that role. as a mentor. So that's huge. We are about to roll into a Q&A session. So if you guys have any questions for the panelists, please type them in the chat so that they can answer them. And I know that we have one. I'm outside, guys. I'm sorry. I live 2 miles from a fire station.
That's okay.
But it's a beautiful day. So yeah, and while we have kind of this break as questions are starting to come in, make sure you like and share this as you're watching. You can use the hashtag Women Offshore to share. And thank you for being here with us. I know we have one question. A question for later. It's kind of long. Sorry. Has a mentor ever given you a different perspective on yourself? Has a mentor aided you in recognizing traits or capabilities you did not realize you possessed? How did they go about helping you to discover the attributes that you had not identified yourself? Maria, I know that you had probably a different take on this than some other people would. Would you mind sharing?
Yeah, the thing is, because I entered the industry, now older age, I guess, not too old, at 30, I always, I filtered myself before seeking for mentoring, because I was trying to combine my skills, my background, education, the things that I used to do with new things so I could achieve the next step faster. So being honest, my personal opinion, it never happened to me. Thank God. I feel, like flattered. But I always did that with myself first. Okay, I decided, okay, this is a short way. I can do this. I'm going to achieve my goal. I think I can do it. And then I would search for a professional mentoring, and it just happened. But this was, because I wasn't looking for a very adventurous thing. I wanted to reach my goal because the adventure itself is for me to be working offshore, because I fell in love with the industry. So I just want to carry on working there, So this was my own experience.
Amazing. So our next question, did anyone have anything to add there before we move to the next one? Okay. And we do have Tara back on, guys, from Mentorloop. So if you have specific questions about the platform or any of the back-end tech stuff, you can ask those as well. The next question is, what happens if you don't know how to help your mentee? Example, they come to you with an issue, but you don't know how to help them and you don't want to steer them in the wrong direction. So I had this experience in the first round of the mentoring program when I was acting as a mentor. I know Serena had said that, she was mentoring somebody from a different country. I was doing the same. Luckily, my husband also works in the industry, and, he has sailed with guys who are of that nationality. And I reached out to them and just kind of used my contact pool as well as I could to answer the question. It was definitely challenging because I didn't have all the answers, but we all network in this industry. It's a huge part of the industry. So rely on that network, build that network. Maybe you introduce your mentee to those contacts. Maybe you just ask them questions if they don't want their contact information shared, but you can definitely get the answers and report back to them. We also have the Women Offshore community, which you're always welcome to post questions in there as well, specifically on how you can help your mentee and get feedback from the community as a whole. So, Tara, did you have something to add here?
Yeah, I love this question in a way because my favorite advice for mentors is you can't if you don't know the answer, admit what you don't know. You're not there. I mean, you are obviously helping them solve problems and fix their problems, but just being a sounding board is super valuable. So admit what you don't know and just be there for them to be able to talk through their problems. That's the biggest advice for mentors.
Excellent. Our next question is, how do you deal with tiredness being a mentor for someone else? Do we have anyone who wants to take this?
I mean, I can take it.
Awesome. Thank you, Serena.
I can understand maybe if you're in constant contact with your mentees, and if you have a full-time job, like I'm working as a port engineer right now, which is a Sunday to Saturday job, and I have 2 cell phones and I have a laptop and I have a lot of things that I need to answer for. So I have that full-time job going, and I also, do the mentor program. So what we would try to do is set goals and say, okay, hey, let's get back with each other in a month. Right now, as I'm getting to know my mentees, we're probably in a lot more like communication. But then I would just try to set things, for once a month, so that it's not someone that you're talking to every day or working through their everyday problems. You want to make sure that you're working on, a long-term goal. So you might set that goal for 6 months, and then you guys, get together every 2 months or 3 months or 1 month, whatever works out for the two of you, so that, it's not wearing on you as a person.
Yeah, that's huge, that balance for sure. We can roll into this next question. This rolls in really well, I think. What's a realistic time frame to hear back from your mentee or your mentor? Tara, do you want to kind of answer this? I know this answer will be probably a little different from a lot of the people who use Mentorloop, just because of the challenges of working offshore and remote internet access. Serena, I know you were on like Wi-Fi hotspots, all sorts of different combos yesterday to join us, and we appreciate that. But it's even more challenging at sea, right? And then especially in this industry, people do go on vacation and maybe away from home after. So what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, I'll quickly speak to that as well. Obviously the industry, Women Offshore, with the time frame would be definitely longer, and it's also probably a bit of a sporadic conversation, but we recommend three months as the time to obviously hear back, but obviously get to know your mentor or mentee as well. And you should know after 3 months, is this going to work or is this not going to work? The beauty of it too is that you can reach out to Ali and sort of chat through if you haven't heard, so then she can reach out, or the team at Women Offshore can reach out as well, because we can kind of see in the app if you've logged in or if you've engaged with any of the content too. So we'll be able to help you with that. I would give it 3 months though, which seems like a long time, but I think in the industry that you're in, it makes a little bit of sense.
3 months offshore, like literally happens in a blink of an eye. Yeah,
True.
That's great feedback. Thank you. And I mean, that goes back to kind of the nudges and the reminders. It's very helpful. I know my notifications personally are a mess, and I only have 1 cell phone right now. So it's definitely appreciated. Let's see. I don't see any more questions at this point, but make sure we have a couple more minutes. So if you guys have any questions for the team here, let's hear them and we'll get those answered for you. Ladies, I'm so thankful. Oh, go ahead.
What was the first question that you asked in the Q&A?
The first question that I asked in the Q&A, Serena, that was like 10 minutes ago.
It was.
Has a mentor ever given you a different perspective on yourself?
So I took a really long time to get my second engineer's license, and then it's kind of easy to get the time for your first engineer's license after that. So once I realized how easy it was to walk into the Coast Guard and give them the paperwork, and then I sat for the exam, and I actually taught on the training ship in New York, and that really helped me pass the test. And then also I taught there after I had gotten the first engineer's license, and like teaching, and like now you're in this position where you're kind of like managing people, you're starting to pick up a lot of things, but I still hadn't sailed as a first engineer. So I got off the ship and I was working for someone who I really admire, who is on my resume as someone that, he's one of my references. And we were having dinner, and there was a first engineer's job, and I could relieve him, by flying to Oakland or wherever it was to go catch the job. And I was like, I'm not ready for that. And he's like, when are you going to be ready? He was like, you had the license now, you're sitting on it, you're waiting. And I was like, I don't know about that. I was like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, do you know how to maneuver the ship? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, do you know how to do this? Do you know how to do that? And I was like, yeah, I guess so. And he's like, well, you'll figure out the rest of that stuff later. And so by the end of dinner, I'd bought a ticket to Oakland and took the job. And so it just took him kind of, believing in me and letting me know that obviously it's not going to be perfect every time you go on the ship. But, if you know the basics and you know how to find the answers and whatnot, things will come after. And so for me, I think the hardest part of being, in the management position is the people management. Knowing how to read a manual, that's something that I learned in school. And, knowing how to fix something, same thing. You read the manual to figure it out. But managing all the different people on board is probably my biggest challenge. And that's something that I'm slowly getting better at. And I always reach out to the people that I consider my mentors and ask them when I'm having a people problem.
Amazing. That's great perspective. The next question is for you as well. When you first took on your mentees, did you have any challenges you had to overcome personally to be a better mentor?
When I was saying about not taking myself seriously, I would approach a lot of issues because I've been sailing so long. If someone said something to me that would be considered harassment, I usually laughed it off. And I had a tough demeanor. One of my friends, the first day I met her, was in the bathroom during our indoctrination in college, and she was crying. And I was like, why are you crying? And she's like, oh, these people are yelling at me. And I was like, no one's ever yelled at you. I'm like, I grew up in a household of chaos. So it didn't mean anything to me. And for me, I was laughing. I was like, oh, this is so funny. These guys are they're yelling at me. And it's like, ha, 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 ha. No, I don't know why I thought it was so funny. I was cadet giggles the whole time. So I had to look at that and think that not everyone is going to take everything, the same way as me. Someone might be writing me this message and they might be crying, or someone's writing me this message and they're angry, or they're laughing. And so I had to take into consideration that not everyone is going to approach everything the same way that I do. And so I had to reach out, to my friends and say, hey, how will I handle this problem? Because I didn't want to give someone, really bad advice.
Yeah, that's great perspective. We, as mentors, we don't want to do harm. We want to be helpful. And when you've been in the industry, after a couple of years, you definitely do start to develop a thicker skin, and how you approach things may be totally different than when you first started out. And people do handle challenges differently, right? So learning how somebody else may approach a situation differently than you is important to be able to give that perspective as well as a mentor. Let's see. So this is a follow-up comment. The first part was rumors on ships and campus are horrible. Is there any way to change those rumors or let people know the real you? Do we have anyone who wants to take this? I know this is challenging and something we've probably all faced. A lot of times your work has to speak for itself, and there may not be that many atta girls, but that's not why we go to work, right? That's not why we entered this industry. It was for the praise or the pat on the back. It was, for me personally, it was the money, it was the schedule, it was the independence, right? So my work product just had to stand for itself. And as I got to know people in the industry, as I kind of made friends and won people over, it definitely got a lot easier, right? But there were plenty of times where I ate dinner by myself too. So it's, for me, that was the biggest thing, was just double checking my I's, crossing my T's, and having everything squared away as best I could. Does anybody else want to add to that? Cassandra?
Yeah, I think I can kind of speak to that. Advice I got a really long time ago. I think I was still a cadet. It's, show up, work hard, and I think that goes a long way. Eventually, people will see the real you, and just kind of keep your head low. I try not to let things like that bother me as much. And I've only been sailing 2 years, but I feel like the longer I sail, the easier it gets. And I read your second question about backlash of mothers going back to sea. I just don't think it's any of their business. There's plenty of women that do sail with kids, and you got Alana Anderson with Transocean, who's a mother of 2, and she's awesome. She's somebody I look up to. And then Carrie Norton, she's also offshore on rigs, and she's another mother. So I think reaching out to those people and asking about their experiences will go a long way.
Yeah, those are 2 amazing resources, Cassie, regarding that question. There's a lot of women in our community. I say a lot of women. There's probably like 5, which seems like a lot, who have had children and gone back to sea. And so if you are struggling with this or fearing backlash at all, get in touch with me, get in touch with them through the community, and we will see if we can connect you and help kind of alleviate some of those fears, because that's the last thing that you want to be worrying about as a new mother.
Hey,
So,
Jay.
Yes.
I just wanted to talk about the last question when the person that had mentioned rumors and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think, that there might be a lot of cadets watching this. And I know that when I went to school, it doesn't matter what you do. I mean, Cassie said you can keep your head down and, go about your business and no one will talk and just ignore what they say. You can do like I did, which is I was the loudest person in every room. And still, no matter what you do, certain people will choose to talk about you. Obviously, if it's something that is harming your studies, you should talk to a counselor or somebody at school, to work on that. If you have a mentor outside of school, obviously you can talk to one of us. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're locked in your room all day or if you're out partying like Serena was all day long. People are going to talk because that is just the nature of this industry. There's so few of us, And so I've been in my union for 16 years and still I'll walk into a union hall or a Zoom meeting or something. And there are people that I have never seen before, never met, but they're like, I know you. And I've heard, and whatever the case, I don't care, And like I said, you let your work ethic show what you can do, and don't worry about what those people are saying. You should not feel like you should change your personality to suit everyone else's.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Let's see. Our next question was, who inspired you to stay offshore? Does anyone want to take this?
I don't have a person. Okay, that's okay. You can go.
I would say, actually, okay, so I would say 10 years ago or so, I was at my union school in Maryland, and this woman asked me for a ride back to New York. She'd heard we lived in the same area, and she came and rode with me, and her name's Claudia, and she handed me her business card at the end so we could stay in contact, and it said, U.S. Coast Guard licensed chief engineer, CM Diesel, and I was like, what? I was like, that's the thing. I was like, I've never even really, I was just kind of chilling, hanging out, sailing third and second. I was very complacent in my lifestyle, my money, my vacation. And so honestly, I thought, just like a lot of people, that after say 8 to 10 years that I would transition to, something on shore. But just knowing that that was a possibility, or that, there are other women that had done it before, I was like, okay, so I don't know necessarily. Once I found out that it was possible, or I realized that it was possible, that's kind of something that, made me continue on and kind of keep going for the higher licenses.
Yeah, that's amazing. Maria, did you have something to add?
No, I was just going to say it wasn't a person. I fell for the industry, working at sea, the challenge, the adventure, There were so many little important things that kept me on the industry till today. It wasn't really like a one person thing. It's just that.
Yeah. Let's see. How do you establish yourself as a leader without engaging in the typical degrading or aggressive tactics that male leaders often use? As a leader, how do you combat combat the trope of people seeing you as, quote, bitchy rather than as a quality leader? Does anyone want to take this? That's a great question. I'm not gonna lie, like I kind of was bitchy, and so I would just be me sometimes. Like, that's my personality. And as people got to know me, they'd be like, oh my God, you're actually fun. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I don't need to be fun all the time. And we can kind of turn that on and off. Serena, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I definitely, for myself, in order to let everyone know that I'm there to, lead them and take the job seriously, most companies have like an ISM manual. So I kind of learn a lot of what is in that manual. So I know what the safety practices are and the quality and the environmental standards for the company. So one thing I can walk around and do, is just try to, make sure that everyone is working safe and that we're doing things in the most efficient way. And that's like the beginning, and once I have established kind of like I know what I'm talking about in terms of you doing your job, then maybe I'll start to give a little bit more direction. But I remember in that very, very first trip sailing as first engineer, there was a guy who did not want to engage in like our morning meetings. He didn't want to talk to me. He didn't want to listen to me. And I sailed with this guy as a third engineer many times. So finally I asked, the chief, I'm like, what do I do? And he's like, well, call him for a little meeting after the morning meeting. And I'm like, well, that's probably not going to go over well. So I'm like, we have the morning meeting, send everybody off to work. And I was like, hey, so-and-so, can you stick behind so we can talk for a few minutes? And so I was like, hey, like, what is going on? What's the deal? Why won't you like listen, pay attention, engage? He's like kind of sit in the corner with a newspaper. And he's like, well, I don't know. You act like a fucking bitch. And I'm like, I haven't changed my personality. I'm literally the same person I was yesterday, but now I'm in charge. So maybe you see that as, you don't want to take direction from me, and I understand it. But if that's your, if you have an issue with that, then you can leave. And, I went about leading everyone else, and this person decided to leave, and we got somebody else to work there. It's not really, if you don't want to accept my authority, then that's your problem. But me being myself and doing my job, which is leading you in a safe and efficient manner, does not mean that I'm being a bitch.
Yeah. Woo.
Amen, sister. No, I mean, and those one-to-one conversations go a long way. Like, you don't have to call someone out or embarrass them in front of everyone. Like, just sit down and be like, sitting down and asking questions is huge, right? Because sometimes some people stop and think about what they've said or how they're behaving, and it's like, oh wow, okay. So I love that you laid that out.
Yeah.
Next question is, have you ever not found common ground with a mentee, we can say, or mentor, or found that you had a personality clash with and had to step away from that person? This could be formal or informal, because I know that there's a lot of informal mentoring that also goes on in the industry. Does anyone want to weigh in here? Tara, have you ever seen this?
Yeah, but not quite often, but I guess like for us, we run an algorithm and we match people that closely aligns their goals and skills and maybe a bit of keywords, or maybe they have, kids and they have that. But at the end of the day, if you don't connect on a personal level, then it's not going to work. Like, that is a real key ingredient. But that's okay. That happens. So, there is a natural close, and, all you need to do is say, hey, I don't think we're on the same path here, or I don't know if I'm going to be able to help, or, whatever it is, but let's remain friends, let's remain connected. But we'll, naturally close this mentoring relationship. So, yeah, that
Amazing.
happens.
Thank you for that. And is there a single piece of advice that a mentor has given you that has stuck with you ever since? Who would like to weigh in for this one? Maria, you look like you have something to say, and this is the last question.
Well, because it's not really a positive thing. I mean, I'm very friendly, and I talk to everyone, and I'm a bit kind of Serena. I'm very loud. People can hear my laughing, from the bottom of the galley till the heli deck. So there was this person that I consider one of my mentors in the industry, and he said to me, you are very good at what you do. You are going, in the right path. You work hard, but please don't trust everyone. Don't talk to everyone about your stuff and blah, blah, blah. So that's why I said one of my pieces of advice: when you have to keep yourself motivated, be sure you know who you share your dreams with. So I guess maybe he's right. I don't know. Maybe he's right. But I always think, like Serena, again, that I have to be myself. Like you said, Jace, we have to be ourselves out there, because even when you are the most correct person, there's gonna be someone, judging you from behind. So I guess if I am doing my job properly, and if I am being myself, yeah, if I am polite to people, there is no way it could go wrong. But this was a piece of advice that I received from a mentor that got stuck in my mind.
Love that. Does anyone else have anything to add here?
I'll quickly jump in. My biggest one is setting boundaries is okay. Don't feel guilty about it. It's very hard for me to set boundaries sometimes, but that's the biggest piece of advice I've had, and I kind of work to that every single day, not to feel guilty when I do.
Good.
That is amazing advice.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cassie. Did you have something to add?
So I forget who told me this. I actually heard it at a Women Offshore conference many years ago. And I think it was a captain, and she said, whatever you do, don't try to be one of the boys. And at first I kind of laughed, because I always felt like a little bit like a tomboy. Maybe I laugh at things that I shouldn't laugh, and it's true, stick to your guns. You don't have to fit in. I had a maintenance supervisor telling me, like, you don't have to be friends with everyone. And, that really resonated with me. I can still be feminine. I can still be a good engineer. I can still be personable and have all those things, and still, make it in the industry. So that was a good one for me.
Phenomenal. Thank you. Ladies, thank you so much for being here with us today, for weighing in, and also for answering questions for everyone watching. We appreciate you all and your time. Ali will be back on momentarily.
Hello. Thank you so much to our speakers. This was great. I learned several things as well. And Jace, thanks for moderating the panel.
My pleasure, Ali.
Thanks to everyone who put in their questions in the feed. Great questions. We really appreciate all those questions. There are a lot more questions than I expected even. So thank you all. And we want to do more of these, of course. So please feel free to share this. Jace, I believe we have a hashtag, right?
Yes, we do. When you're sharing, you can use the hashtag Women Offshore. We also have a special gift for all of you guys watching. You can go to womenoffshore.com/shop, and we have a special discounted code for you to use for any purchases. The code is webinar. It is good for 15% off, I believe.
Yes,
15% off.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys can use that. If you're watching the replay, this will be up for a little bit. So make sure you check out and see if there's anything that you would like. All the Women Offshore swag helps support the Women Offshore Foundation community. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. And yeah, we have amazing and some limited edition things.
Yeah, your donations are very important to keep us afloat. So thank you to everyone who's donated this year. Your money went towards paying our mentorship bill, and even just $1 helps. So thank you all. One thing that you all should know, for those still watching, is that we have a conference, and that conference has been pushed to October because of COVID, and we've decided to make it virtual. So it will be a 2-day conference, October 2nd and 9th, and that's what we'll be preparing for next. So we'll have more information on womenoffshore.org, as well as our social media pages and newsletter for you regarding the conference. We're really excited. We also think this will be a great opportunity for people to view what our conference would be like if we held it in person. And it's going to be interactive. It's not just going to be us speaking at you. You're going to be involved way more than putting questions on the feed. We're talking roundtable discussions, getting to know other women. It's going to be really exciting and very different than just sitting here looking at our faces. So we're going to sign off now. Jace, any last words before I end the broadcast?
No, thank you to each and every one of you for being here. If you're watching the replay, thank you so much for catching the replay, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.